Good morning to you and welcome to the SitRep for today, the 20th day of February 2023. I'm Gads and this is Ragnarok Survival, and this is the SitRep, the Situation Report, where we go through news stories that I've found interesting from the past couple of days and have a look at it from the perspective of prepping so that we can be better prepared human beings. So welcome. Thank you for joining me, whether you're joining me on the Instagrams, on the YouTubes, the YouTubies, or listening to this on the audio version after the fact, once I post it up. But yeah, thanks anyway. Space weather news, in case you haven't caught my Instagram reel or story. I've been talking about this one a little bit because it was a larger solar flare, an X class, which is the highest class. Coronal mass ejection that has come out, and so that is flying towards Earth and should at least clip Earth. We might get the tail edge of it, or we might get full frontal hit of it anywhere now onwards, basically. So they were saying the night of the 19th. Let me see if that calculates right. The late 19th of February, which in Australia is now, it's the 20th of February here in Australia because we come from the future. I'm giving you this information from the future. You're welcome. So it should be hitting anywhere from now to tomorrow morning UTC or Greenwich Mean Time, which obviously is now until maybe the next 12 hours, I guess. So just know there might be some slight effects. It's not meant to be like earth-shattering effects or anything. It's just meant to be widespread effects. So yeah, keep your eye out for that one. And on cue, Instagram drops out. Dun, dun, dun. Good morning to you, Savage, the Wild, and Alpha on YouTubes. All right, let's jump into it today. The first thing I want to talk about is my New Zealand cuzzy bros. What's been happening over there? You got spanked by a hurricane. What do you call it? I can't even remember now. It's cyclone. Cyclone Gabrielle. Cyclone Gabrielle. It's very biblical. Cyclone Gabrielle has smacked into the eastern side of the Northern Island, mainly affecting one of the largest cities there called Napier. So Napier's been hit. Bad effects, huge amount of flooding. This was about a week ago, by the way, a week and a half ago maybe, that this happened. Pretty big effect. What we're seeing though, as I always say, so this is a great example of one of those things that I always say, there's the effect of whatever disaster it is, then there is the after effect, which is almost always human orientated or human caused, and almost always orders of magnitude worse than the actual event itself. It generally lasts longer, has longer lasting effects, or is exacerbated for a longer period of time by humans. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Napier. At least that's what's coming out in a lot of reports and a lot of social media stuff that's coming out, and in a lot of under the radar kind of reporting, not necessarily the mainstream media, although they have been reporting on this. I have read some things on, let me think, The Guardian. I was watching one of the major TV channels. I'm not sure how they do their TV channels in New Zealand, but one of the channels was coming out, and I was watching a report on that. It was sent to me. All this was sent to me by one of my main sources on Instagram, who has some links to New Zealand, so obviously concerning for them. But it's interesting stuff that's going on there, and really quite horrific stuff, being that when things are closer to home, I find the effect of them emotionally is increased. That's why our news is often filled with like something happened to a cat up a tree in our local suburb. We care about that more than what we care about hundreds of millions of people about to starve to death in Africa, or wars that are happening in the Middle East. Often in our countries, we don't give a shit about any of that sort of stuff. The average person doesn't give a shit. I obviously give a shit because I'm keeping a close eye on these sorts of things, but we care what happens closer to us. So this is happening closer to us. And the effects that are happening, what we're seeing, the negative human effects that are happening, are kind of a bit reflective, although in the New Zealand scale, the New Zealand version of what we saw with Hurricane Katrina. We're seeing looting, we're seeing other crimes, violent activity, gun crime happening, although that might have something to do with the vigilante effect, because the policing apparently isn't up to scratch, isn't fulfilling the needs of the average citizen there. So they're taking it into their own hands. We're seeing fuel lines. We're seeing no power. We're seeing lack of communication. We're seeing people struggling to get clean drinking water and food. So you're seeing third world conditions. Side note, can you say third world anymore? I do it on my courses that I sometimes do all the time. I say third world, and then I go, is that like politically correct anymore? Are we allowed to say third world? Or do we say developing world? Anyway, these sorts of effects, these third world conditions we're seeing in New Zealand, which is a first world country. Feel free to argue with me if you want on that. But I think New Zealand is one of the premier first world countries around, being that it is still, richer on the scale of things, one of the richer countries, and one of the better placed countries as well. So a disaster like this hits, you shouldn't, or not that you shouldn't, but I wouldn't necessarily expect to see this sort of effect apart from the fact that this is what humans do. So a lot of talk about a lot of it's being blamed on gangs as well. There's a particular gang in Napier. So this is that big city that it's centered around, Napier. Am I pronouncing that right? Peter, please correct me if I'm incorrect there, Napier. But I assume it's Napier. And in the Eskdale Valley, just north of it. Can't even remember if that's correct. Eskdale. I think it's Eskdale. I'm pretty sure it's Eskdale. Peter says, yes, my pronunciation is correct, but it's a really small city. I did see the size of it, and I thought, yeah, this is an overgrown town. Calling it city is pretty generous. They did say there's a CBD there, but that's not necessarily linked to a city. Towns can have a CBD too. Norman Lacey says, yeah, I hate that you guys get the new day first. By the time it gets to us, it's all wrinkled and dirty. From my little pun, my joke at the start of this. Peter Rouse says they are blaming climate change, but conveniently forgetting the effects of the Tonga eruption. Massive food supplies destroyed in already strained supply chain. So yeah, this is one of the effects that's pretty shocking. On the whole, like, you got to look at the weather effect here. You got to look at the cyclone and acknowledge what that is and what that has done. A lot of flooding, huge amount of issues that have happened in this area for people thrown out of their homes, basically becoming refugees temporarily. And this is the sort of stuff that happens in every weather effect. We get cyclones here in Australia and it happens here. We get flooding here in Australia, it happens here. We have fires here in Australia and it happens here. So these are the sorts of things that you need to look out for and expect. And as I always say, weather effects are important because they happen and we can't mitigate them really. We can't do anything about them. Some massive flood like this, you can do all the prepping you want in your own house, but you always have to have that plan B. What if I'm dislodged from where I am? So I have spent the last couple of days actually going through some of my equipment, so grab bags, stuff like that. And I've got a series of duffel bags. One is just shelter, so it's tents and sleeping mats and sleeping bags and stuff like that. One is like a camp setup, so it's got food preparation sort of stuff and some food in there. It's got water cleaning devices. It's got fire making devices, it's got cleaning sort of stuff, it's got hygiene stuff, it's got all the things that you might need if you're camping or you're away from home for an extended period. These are the sorts of things you want to think about. If you're seeing this sort of stuff on in the news, you're looking at some sort of severe weather effect coming in, you want to plan early, you want to have that stuff in your car ready to roll to get out of there. But yeah, the effects that we're looking at here, I've watched a couple of videos here. We're seeing massive fuel lines in Napier, no power, phone reception cutting in and out. Now this is an important one. Phone reception, super important. Might not seem like a big important thing, but a lot of people rely solely on the cell network on their phone to communicate with the outside world. So if you're stuck somewhere, if an emergency happens, what are you going to do? Who are you going to call? So phone network is important. And I saw this actually happening when I went and helped out in the floods up in the Northern Rivers here in Australia recently, that, we had people that hadn't had any contact. I went there a week after the fact, and I was chainsawing and climbing my way into places that were a little bit off the beaten track, to people who were like, oh, hey, we haven't been able to contact anyone. We had one chopper fly over, and we had a quick chat to them. But apart from that, we haven't talked to anyone because there's no phone network. So that's something to think about in of itself. But why is the phone network down? Because this is actually also part of it. The looting. All right. So people are looting stores. People are, looting or attacking and robbing households. But they have also apparently been taking the generators from the cell towers. So the cell towers aren't getting power to them, but they've got their own backup generators. Well, people are looking at that and going, hey, we need the power. We need this more than this cell network does. So we're going to steal that. Again, I sort of said this at the start, that all of this is being blamed on gangs as far as mainstream media is concerned. And I'm not saying it's not the gangs who are doing this, but it wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility, at least to my thinking, that somebody who's desperate, who wants that power to power whatever, probably useless stuff they have, but maybe even useful things, is looking at that going like, hey, there's a generator. I'm just going to take that. There's no security around it. I'll take it. So a lot of these, apparently Vodafone towers, they were saying in one of the reports, are down because they don't have the power because people have stolen the generators. Yes. There's a few, again, this sent to me from my main source. This was a really interesting tweet that went out. I'm not going to say who the person was, but it was a person who obviously lives in Napier. And they just asked the question on Twitter, does anyone know where to buy power banks from? Anywhere in Napier open? Like, this is grade A example of the unprepared. Like this person going out on Twitter going like, hey, I can't charge my phone and I need power banks. Where can we get them? It's like the horse has bolted. I'm sorry, friend, but the horse is gone. You can shut that gate all you want now. It's not going to matter. This is why we prepare. This is why we get ready. This is why, like, right here, just happens to be around me. I'm not like, didn't pull these out for this, but power bank. I've got bunches of them. I've got power banks in bags here. I've got power banks in my backup bags. I've got power banks, like, in a lot of different places, or cords or things that I can use, or, backup power generators and stuff like that, because I understand how important this stuff is. I also understand that other people, like this person here, as a great example, are going to be in a place where they don't know what to do. And if I can go to them, if someone like that in my local town, if we lost power and somebody's like, I don't know what to do, my phone's about to die, I'm like, hey, here is a $30 power bank. You can charge your phone twice off. All right, bang, done. So you've just helped out someone immensely. Again, this is one of the things I think about with prepping. It's not just prepping for myself once I've got that sorted, or prepping for my family once I've got that sorted. It's also my extended circle, my family, my friends, my mag group, my extended friends, and then the community as a whole. What sort of, and I'm not saying I prep for the entire community. I just do one or two little key things that I can do, that I can have surplus of, and maybe somebody else will have something else as well. And you can kind of start to connect the dots there. Peter Rouse says, good luck stealing my generator. Need a forklift just to load it on a truck. Besides that, they have to get past the security first. Like this is the thing with these generators that are obviously on these cell towers. I don't know what generators they're operating there, but I would assume they're at least somewhat man portable, or at least the kind of generator that you could pick up and take with 2 to 3 people. So not extremely large ones. Your bigger worksite diesel generators, that's a different story. You're not going to be able to pick that up. But some of the generators I've got, I can pick up with one arm. That's like an 1800 generator, little electric one. So somebody could easily take that. They're welcome to try. I also have security. So here's another tweet that came out from the region. My daughter just told me the generator was stolen from her aunties and local cell sites in Napier as well. To the selfish pricks who are doing this, there is a special place in hell for you. I left Napier because of this shit a few years ago. I don't know about Napier, but some of the things that I've been looking at and some of the interviews of people that I've been seeing within this area tells me that, how do I put this? Not shit on Napier. That it might be a slightly lower socioeconomic standing within this part of New Zealand. I'm not 100% sure of that. I don't know if the word bogan applies to New Zealanders. I'm not sure what equivalent you have, but Aussies will get me if I say it's bogan. Americans might get me if I say it looks maybe a little rednecky, but not redneck, if you know what I mean. Not redneck kind of sometimes is associated with somebody who is kind of rurally and useful. Bogan, on the other hand, is somebody who is usually not as useful. So that's the vibe I'm getting. I could be totally wrong there, but bogan is definitely the vibe that I'm getting from the area. Here's another one. This one blew me away. This is some Mad Max shit coming out of New Zealand right now. Another tweet, and it's of a photo of a tire that has a big hooked piece of metal stuck in it. Assholes running from police yesterday threw these all over the road to stop being caught. Now it has screwed at least one tire from someone just wanting to get some supplies. Some humans are trash. So they've made these twisted pieces of metal with spikes in it, and they've thrown them over the road to get away from the cops. And now other motorists are driving over them and puncturing their tires. It's crazy. Peter Rouse says it's just the entire North Island that is crap. Sorry if anyone here is from the North Island. Quote, people in cyclone hit Napier were asked to stay inside their homes tonight after an armed police response to an incident in Marawa. Residents of Barker Road and surrounding streets were told the armed offenders squad was seeking a person of interest, with one local telling the Herald an Eagle helicopter was also hovering over the area. The police crackdown is happening there. I don't know how well it's doing, judging by some of the news reports, mainstream media news reports that I was watching this morning. Doesn't seem that it's going good. But anyway, concerning signs, I'm not here to point out like, oh my God, doom and gloom. It's just like, hey, look at this sort of stuff and learn from this. Okay, we can always become better at what we're doing. And any example of this sort of stuff where we have human effects from a disaster, I always like to highlight, because, as I said, this is one of the biggest threats. In fact, if I'm doing a pure risk analysis and I'm thinking threats to a human being, other human beings are the number one threat to us. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to rank anything else above that. It's human beings that are the threat to human beings. So that's always something you need to plan for, despite what you're planning for. You're planning for a cyclone? Cool. Also plan for that as part of that disaster, what the human effect is. You're planning for, I don't know, World War III. What's the human effect on your local area? You're planning for aliens. Here's a great one, because we've had this in the news lately. You're planning for an alien invasion. Let's imagine for a second that these balloons that were getting shot down weren't just people putting balloons up, which I firmly believe or most likely is what it was. That it's in the news, balloons are in the air, and then people are like, this will be funny, and we got a whole bunch of balloons now flying around in the air just from normal people. Just for shits and giggles. Let's imagine for a second those balloons are actually aliens. and that the US government comes out and says, these are aliens and we're shooting them down because we know they have hostile intent. Now imagine what the human effect is. Doesn't matter where you are. Imagine what would happen in your town in New Zealand, in your town in Australia, in your city in Australia, whether you are in the Appalachian Mountains, whether you are in, who else have I got? Norway, whether you're in the UK, it doesn't matter where you are. If that news came out, imagine what every normie human being would be doing right now. They would be going crazy. There would be not just fist fights over toilet paper. These people would be beating each other to death with whatever they could get their hands on. They would be storming Woolies and Coles to get their hands on all sorts of superfluous crap that you don't really need in an emergency. So it's this human effect that you always got to plan for. And right now, full thoughts go out to the people in Napier, but also we can learn from these sort of tragedies, as I've always said. Savage the Wild says people flying their hot air balloons over rural America would be like, look out, shit's going down. Alpha on YouTube says the channel Green Greg's has facts about the Yukon balloon and insight on others. Okay, I'm not familiar with that channel Green Greg's. I'll look that one up. Thank you for that information, Alpha. Right, what else is happening in the world? Let's jump around some other places. The other big one that I want to kick on with first up. Peter Rouse says, imagine what they would do in Melbourne or Auckland. Like, it would be utter insanity. Utter insanity. Melbourne's the second largest city in Australia, but it's soon to become the largest city, overtaking Sydney. And Auckland, I believe, is the largest city in New Zealand. Well, at least I've been to Auckland. I've been to Wellington. Wellington's the capital, but I believe Auckland's much larger in human size. The effects would be catastrophic, to say the least. So this is always something you've got to think about: the human effect. All right. abc.net.au, again, another link sent to me by my main source here. This one frightened me a little bit. It's again another attack on the food system, but not the direct attack. This is hey, you shouldn't grow your own shit. You people, you don't know what you're doing. You're not good enough. You shouldn't have chickens. You shouldn't have gardens. You shouldn't have anything. You should rely solely on the government to give you your mealworm gruel every week or so. You'll get that. Lentils and mealworm gruel. That's all you need. All right. So the story coming out from ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, government root knot nematode, which is a disease that affects various plants, a lot of food crop plants, has been detected in Hervey Bay with farmers and gardeners on high alert. So Hervey Bay being up North Australia, I think. Hervey Bay's in Queensland. Well, I know there is a Hervey Bay in Queensland, so I assume I'm talking about that one. A highly invasive and destructive pest that attacks the roots of vegetables and can cause significant crop loss has been discovered in Hervey Bay backyard. Biosecurity Queensland detected a case of the rare pest guava root knot nematode in a Hervey Bay backyard. The pest poses a significant threat to plant industries and can cause significant crop losses. Bundaberg produces more than 90% of Australia's sweet potatoes, and local growers are on high alert. So, this is a huge thing. For those who don't know, those who don't live in Australia or New Zealand, our biosecurity is real, okay? It is real serious. Much more New Zealand than Australia, by the way, but Australia's still pretty serious about it. Our biosecurity laws are tight. We do not like certain things getting into our country. In fact, like, you will either get stuff taken off you or it will be cleaned at your expense if you're trying to bring things into Australia without declaring it. And much more so, I think, in New Zealand, or personally, my experience is much more so in New Zealand. But it's because we're island nations and we don't have certain diseases that are prolific throughout the world, and we want to kind of keep it that way. Anyway, think every now and then things like this get in, and it concerns people greatly. So it's concerning in of itself that we've got this pest that's potentially going to destroy crops. But the big thing is that it was focused on a backyard garden. When that sort of piece of information shone up to me, I was like, oh, okay, this is yet another excuse for them to go like, no backyard gardens, no chickens because you're going to give everyone bird flu, and no backyard gardens because this kind of pest could just spread willy-nilly and we can't do anything about it. But if you do have a garden, you have to register it. This is where I say, I'm just making all that up, right? But this is where I see it going. And I see it going because this is how Australia has done, Australia at least, has done things in the past and is proving that they're doing. They want that registration, they want that control, they want oversight, and they want to nullify anyone having their own ability to do their own thing. So the tinfoil hat version of this, for me, is going, oh yeah, this is the powers that be wanting us to be totally dependent on them and not being out there being self-sustaining, self-responsible human beings. They don't want that. All right, they can't control that human, which is exactly what I espouse on this channel. Is the exact thing that is the thesis of this channel, is to make you or encourage you to be responsible for yourself, to be resilient within yourself, and to be reliant upon yourself so that you can grow your own stuff, so you don't have to get told what to do by someone else. But that is the antithesis of what the, I don't know, reptilian overlords or whatever the fuck you want to call them want from us. But at the very least, this is a good excuse for them to register who's growing food and where they're growing food. And that could be information that's very, very handy if they keep pushing down the path of communism that I think they're going down, where my backbreaking labor and years of experience of doing it will now go to somebody who hasn't done it and can't do it and won't do it. I hate communism. Anyway. Ocean Kisses says, leaked ATF documents reveal the Biden regime's scheme to close gun stores across the country. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. That Instachick says, would a backyard gardener even know about the pest? How? I assume you mean just autocorrect. How would a backyard gardener even know about the pest? It's a great question. I don't know. I think, well, let me put it this way. If I had something that was destroying my crops, I'd probably look it up. I'd probably have a look at what it was and try and figure it out. But apart from that, I wouldn't look too much into it. The theory, I guess, is here that this person looked into it and then notified Biosecurity Queensland. Biosecurity Queensland came out because they're the ones confirming it. They've come out and tested it and gone, yes, it is this. But yeah, that's certainly like a little bit of gap in the information there. Like, that seems weird that Biosecurity Queensland would just rock up to someone's backyard and test this. Kevin Myrant on YouTube says, work on your personal security. If you buy extra food and someone sees you, you become a target. Same for your gardens. Stay safe. My US government has shown it doesn't care for its citizens. No, absolutely correct there, Kevin, by the way. Thank you very much for your comment. Also, no government anywhere cares for its citizens. Governments are corporations, but very bad corporations. They're corporations that don't have to make money, as in they don't have to show a profit. They can make a loss every year, and then they just steal the money off their citizens. That's the only part they care about their citizens, the ability for those citizens to earn money and then be dependent on them for when they want to tell them what to do. No government has you, the individual, has your rights and your wants and needs in mind. Like they're not made that way. That's almost the opposite of what a government does. So I agree with Kevin though on this one. Security, like I say, is one of the sort of like the big four that I talk about, that you should, try and look at securing and procuring water, shelter, food, and then security, something to actually secure those things. You can have all the stuff you want in the world. You could have things for you to survive the next 100 years. If you can't secure it, you don't have it. So security is a huge thing. Alpha says, what was your like number? Oh, it's saying hit the like button. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I always forget to say stuff like that. Hit the like button, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm not really super focused on it. It's always good to get more people in, to have more people listening to this sort of stuff, because I at least believe that we're encouraging others to be more prepared. And the world I want to live in is one where the balance is in the favor of the more prepared. If we've got 10 human beings in an area and only one is prepared and something goes wrong, then we've got 9 people who are now actively working against that prepared person. And that's where we're at, where you and I are at right now, to be perfectly honest. The amount of people that are actually prepared for some sort of catastrophe, disaster, emergency, whatever it is a tiny fraction of the population. And we will be overwhelmed. That's the sad truth about it. If we can encourage another person to do it, then there's 2 out of 10. If both of us now can encourage one more person, it's 4 out of 10. And we start to shift that scale, that if an emergency does happen, there's now 4 of us who can step up and go, hey, yo, you 6, I know you're scared. I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. We've got this. We can sort this out. Calm down. Put the toilet paper down. It's going to be okay. Yeah, that's what this channel is all about, is encouraging that sort of stuff. So if you do want to spread the word, I appreciate it. But likes and numbers and stuff are just that. It's something for me to look at and every now and then go like, oh, cool. I've got a couple more followers. I think maybe I'm heading towards 700 followers on the YouTubes, and I'm over 1,400 on Instagram. Not huge numbers. Like, I'm looking at other people who've got like 10,000, 100,000, stuff like that, 700,000. I don't have tits and I don't wear a bikini, so I'm never going to hit those numbers. But it's always good. It's always good. Every single individual that joins into our community is good. So thank you. Savage says, yeah, it's always the TP. The TP fiends. They're always after it. Need them poo tickets. Gotta get them. Hey, man, you got any of them poo tickets? Need to wipe my bum. Peter Rouse says, when it comes to personal protection, you need to put physical preparation at the top of the list. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Up towards the top of the list. As I like to say, when it comes to any preparations, your mindset is number one. That's the number one thing you can do. Put yourself in the right mindset. And this, gets people offside sometimes, but I'm just going to say this. If you're coming to this from a place of fear, if you're always looking at this going like, ooh, the world is ending, the sky is falling, wring the hands, quick, gather the stuff. You're not coming from the right place. You're like, okay, what steps do I need to do to become confident when an emergency happens? That's what my belief is. Take those steps. That's where you want to be coming from this. Sort the mindset out. Then physical ability. It gives you more options. Mindset first, then you can have all the ideas. You go, I can do this or I can do that. We can solve this problem in this way. But can you, if you don't have the physical ability? So especially when it comes, as Peter Rouse is saying, to personal security, physical ability is a massive part of it. But all preps, I'm prepping for a disaster, right? I'm prepping for an emergency. And I look at the risk, which I calculate on likelihood and consequence. So right now, what's the likelihood of aliens invading or an asteroid hitting the Earth versus what's the likelihood of a male in my age group developing some sort of heart disease within the next 15 years? Or statistically speaking, that is very high. So I do what I can against those statistics. And one of the things I can do against those statistics is not be part of the norm, because also the average BMI is up over 24. It's like 27 to 28 or something like that in Australia. So you're looking at between overweight to obese. I can look at indicators like that. I can be fit, healthy. I can, make sure I work out often, lift weights, go for a walk, go for a run every now and then, do all that sort of stuff, and make sure that I'm eating in a way that I believe, at least, is consistent with avoiding heart disease. So That's an emergency, though. That's emergency prepping. It might not be the sexy emergency prepping. It's not my grab bag. It's not my axes on the wall. It's not all that cool stuff. But that's a real emergency that I need to try and mitigate the circumstances for, or mitigate the risk. That Insta chick says, wear a bikini and find out. Okay. All right. I'll give it a crack. I might just do some shirtless stuff. See if that helps. All right. You know what? There's other stuff happening in the world, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to actually wrap it up there because I've just gone on some massive rant, and that's that. So I apologize first and foremost for not wearing a bikini. I'll try and get onto that. I'll see if there's one that suits me, one that like matches my eyes or something. No, I'm not going to wear a bikini. It's not going to happen. So, I'll tell you what, it will happen. I will wear a bikini if in 3 weeks' time, what's date now? So, no, let's say by the end of March, let's put some markers on this. If I have 10,000 followers on Instagram and what are we at? 700 on YouTube. Let's say 5,000 on YouTube. If I hit those numbers by the end of March, I'll wear a bikini for an entire SitRep. So that could, now that I've said that, we'll probably watch my numbers dwindle and actually go off a cliff. Thanks heaps for joining me, everyone. I really appreciate it as always. I know these are becoming less frequent at the moment because I've got other stuff going on in my life, but I will endeavor to get more out more regularly because there are stuff that I miss, and it's always good information. But as always, keep your eyes open. Don't necessarily feel like you have to be studying the news like I am. It's one of the reasons why I put this stuff out, is that so that people don't have to pour through the news, because a lot of it is utter shit. And you can get wrapped up in it. And I even get wrapped up in it sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. And then I think about it and I go, does me talking about this actually aid anyone else in their life in being better prepared? Probably not. All right. So don't feel like you have to look at the news, but you do have to keep your eyes open. Your safety is actually around you, what is actually happening around you at any given time. So just keep situationally aware whenever you can. Keep smiling, keep happy, keep getting those preps up, get more food, start growing food, fight this trend of the government starting to tell us that growing stuff is bad. That's rubbish. Don't listen to that. Humans have done it for hundreds of thousands of years. Well, maybe not grown food for hundreds of thousands of years. On some level, we have harvested our own food for hundreds of thousands of years in the current form that we are in right now. So continue doing it. It's our birthright. Savage Wild says, be right back, off to start a massive promotion campaign. Peter Rouse says, challenge accepted, 5,000 YouTube subscribers. I may have put my foot in it. Alpha Omega says, that happened. Don't forget to look at Green Greg's channel. As he said at the start, has a professional. He's a professional in the field on the EMP task force. So pretty pertinent at this time of the world at the moment and what's been happening recently. All right. As always, stay safe out there. If you can't stay safe, stay dangerous. Semper Paratus, gang.